Right guys, so welcome back to a brand new video and something very different here today, and as you can tell by the title, this is going to be a ERS tutorial on the F1 2019 game. And you might be wondering, Tom, it's January, this game has been out for nearly 7 months, why the hell are you doing this now? And my answer to that is, why not? It's better late than never. And also, I tend to get a lot of comments with people asking me how I use my ERS, or why do I use it in a certain way, because if you do something out of the ordinary or something that you're not used to, it tends to freak people out. So I'm going to give an explanation as to how I use ERS and how it works in this game to the best of my ability. First things first, what is ERS? ERS is Energy Recovery System, and as the name indicates, you kind of guess what exactly it does and what its function is, and it is to recover energy. And how does it do that? Well, it's very simple. An F1 car under braking wastes energy. But with the modern generation F1 cars and the technology, the brakes and the engine are linked together. Therefore, the energy lost under braking gets recovered and converted into extra horsepower that you can deploy over a lap or over the course of a race. And it's a massive, massive part of the current generation F1 cars. And it used to be KERS back in the day, which was manually deployable. But now it's much more, I wouldn't say automatic, because it is still manual to an extent, but it's not the same. So let's talk about ERS in more detail. As you can see on the steering wheel in front of me, there are a couple of settings on the dashboard. We don't have to look at the buttons because they're just purely there for aesthetics. We have to look at the little screen. I'm going to zoom in for this. So we have 3 bars, the yellow, the white, and the transparent, top, left, and right. And these 3 bars are super, super important as to how you use ERS on the game. And I'm going to try and give a quick run through and explanation as to how it all works. So first of all, let's focus on the yellow bar, which is actually not the most important one to look at. Even though most people think it is not. But we're going to talk about that first. So with the ERS, you can see on the left-hand side we have a little number 2, and that means that's the mode it is in, which is medium. There are 6 modes in total, which are none, low, medium, high, overtake, and also hot lap. Now, how do these modes work? Pretty much as simple as it may sound, to be honest with you, with a couple of exceptions. So none is the least possible power, but it also means the least amount of battery drainage. So you're going to be very, very slow, but very, very efficient, whereas hot lap is not quite, but almost maximum drainage, but it is going to give you almost maximum power. Now, why do I say almost? Because even though they're in that order, overtake is actually the most powerful mode, and it is also the most drainable, if that makes sense, if that's the right word to use. So basically what I mean by this is overtake, as the name indicates, it's only to be used for overtaking, really, unless you're in career mode and you've got your car very much optimized in terms of ERS deployment. It's going to be, pretty complicated for you to use overtake a lot of the time, and that's why you use hot lap. So let's break these 2 modes down. Hot lap is a better mode for an overall lap of the track. If the name, as the name indicates, is a hot lap, so if you're going for a fast lap in qualifying, that mode will probably get you to the finish line without any problems, without any issues with draining the battery and having no power, whereas you can't do that with overtake, because overtake will drain your battery way before the finish line and you will be underpowered and your lap time will suffer massively as a result of it. So how do you manage these modes, and which mode is best in what scenario? So generally speaking, all the modes are pretty self-explanatory and simple in the sense that it's very logical as to how you want to use them. If you find yourself low on energy and you need to recover some of that, then you'll run low or none in certain parts of the racetrack, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. Medium tends to be the very good mode for me. I use medium most of the time, so I'm quite happy with it. It gets a good balance, it gets the job done, and I don't like to mess about with the setting too much because I find it a bit distracting. So I'll often run medium or hot lap as my 2 go-to modes. Having said that, there is a caveat. So, hot lap is a mode that I would recommend you use from gears 1 to 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those gears you can use hot lap. Overtake, I'd recommend to use 7 and 8, possibly 6 as well. It depends on the track, in my opinion. So 6, you can kind of go hot lap or overtake. That's a bit of a grey area. But 7 and 8, which are the final 2 gears, those gears are designed for overtake mode. And I'm talking here purely from a qualifying perspective and also, general racecraft. So, for example, if you're chasing somebody down and you want to overtake them, if you're trying to, chip away at their lead, then you're going to want to run hot lap in gears 1 to 6, and then from 6 to 8 you want to run overtake to really maximize the time. Having said that, that is going to drain your battery, so you've got to try and be very quick with it. Don't waste your time, and that is only if you're going to make an overtake. Now, we're going to talk about the other two bars as well. So, we have deployment and harvesting. Deployment on the left, harvesting on the right, and they're very, very simple. So, deployment is the ERS that you have to start with. You can see the bar is white. That's because it's also 100%, and this bar goes on a lap-by-lap basis. So every time you cross the start-finish line, the bar will recharge, and it's up to you how to manage that bar over one lap. Here's what most people don't realize. Most people look at the yellow and look at the percentage and say, you finished the lap and you've still got 50% left over. That means you haven't used all of your ERS. And that's true, I haven't. But I have, because people don't look at the deployment. And the deployment is very, very important, because when you're doing a qualifying lap, you look at the white bar, not at the yellow one, because you need to see how much energy you have left. And you have to make sure that you keep that bar charged. And if it runs out before you cross the line, then you're going to suffer a massive, massive amount. Like, for example, this very track, which is Melbourne, Australia, if your deployment bar runs out exiting the final corner, you will lose 2 to 3 tenths running up to the finish line without any ERS. It's that effective. So you need to make sure you manage your deployment on the white, and I'll showcase that in a moment. And the harvesting, which is the bar in the bottom right, the transparent one, that setting is the opposite. So very simple. It's empty right now because we've not gone into the track, but that showcases over a lap, and it resets every lap how much energy you've saved. So for example, energy gets saved under braking and also lift and coast. So you're going to see that bar charge up over a lap, and that will give you an indication as to how much you saved over the lap. And you can try and work that back for every single lap for the entirety of the session. But anyway, enough rambling. Those are the kind of general rules of thumb. I want to make this very clear. This is a very unique point which no one really talks about, but I'm going to speak about it. As a career mode YouTuber, there is something you need to know. So a lot of times I tend to run medium ERS when I could perfectly run a hot lap or overtake, but you don't need to all the time. Just because you've got 80-90% battery doesn't mean you have to run it all the time. Reason being is because in career mode, at least, you have to manage your engine, because durability is a thing with the components, and if you run the higher modes, you're going to wear out your engine more. So again, just like real life F1, when you hear people on the television or when races are going on, they say we have to turn the engine down or we need to save the engine. The same thing applies in career mode. So you don't always have to run your battery to the limit of like 10, 20%, 0%, trying to push it and trying to keep it there, and trying to maximize it all the time. When, for example, you're not under any pressure, or let's say you're in 6th place, you're all by yourself, there's not really, you're not catching nobody, no one's catching you. It's a good time to save the engine. That's a quick little tip for career mode players that I would recommend. Anyway, let's hit the track and let's give some examples of how ERS works. Right then, so we are currently on the track here as Daniel Ricciardo, and this is a Friday practice session, so the grip is not going to be great, so I'm going to try and drive at a respectable pace whilst trying to explain how ERS would work. So, at the final corner, if this was a hot lap, you would run overtake up to the line, you then go to hot lap. Now I'm going to pause this and explain why. So, if you're on a hot lap and you want to really maximize it, let's say it's Q3, it's the very last lap of qualifying, you want to really push this to the limit. The best way to do this is on every single racetrack, because the deployment bar recharges across the line, you can run overtake at the final corner all the way up to the finish to really maximize the lap. Obviously, overtake only applies to gears 6, 7, and 8. So if the straight is long enough and you can do that, by all means, do it. I recommend it. You then go down to hot lap mode to start your lap. And generally speaking, if you don't want to mess around with the ERS too much or you find it too distracting, if you keep it in hot lap mode for the whole lap, you won't have any problems and you will be able to get to the finish line and not run out of battery 9 times out of 10, with the exception of a couple of tracks. So, how do you remedy the situation where you might not make it to the end of the lap with deployment? So, this is the best way to do it. On the straight, of course, you need the performance and you can't afford to throw away any lap time. So, you need to keep it in hot lap mode or overtake mode depending on your situation. But the corners are a great opportunity to save energy, and there's also certain corners where, for example, the AI may not be so fast or your competitors may not be so fast in online racing. So let me give you an example. As we make our way through this right hand and now onto the back straight, in career mode, the next 2 corners, which is the left and the right chicane, the AI are not very quick in career mode. So through here, you could go down to medium ERS, throw the car in, and still get a decent enough exit, as we make an absolute hash of that. And if you get a clean exit, you can then turn it back up to hot lap on the straight, and you would have saved a bit of energy without really sacrificing lap time. Again, Australia, this final sector is a good place where you can maybe run high, for example, and you wouldn't notice a major performance deficit, yet you are once again saving energy through this section here. And then you now go towards the final corner and you want to time it, so as soon as you're on the gas now, you crank it up, and then you hit 7th gear and you go up to overtake and end your lap strongly and across the line. So there's a couple of ways you can do this depending, of course, on the track. Monaco, for example, let's say that's a track where ERS deployment is actually quite easy to do. It's a short lap, so you're probably not going to run out around there, so you can just keep it in a hot lap all the way through and run overtake on the straights. This also depends on career mode as to what stage you are. So if you're quite advanced in career mode and the engine's quite advanced, you can run overtake almost all the time whenever there's a straight, because the engine won't have any issues in terms of reliability. But generally speaking, if it's a default car, whether it be online racing or the start of a career mode or Grand Prix weekend, you have to manage these settings. So like I said, for me personally, what works for me, I don't like to mess around with the settings too much. I find it distracting. So the rule of thumb for me is I run hot lap when I need to go fast, and when I don't, I'll run medium. Medium for me is a very solid mode. You don't suffer with a power loss too much, and all you need to do is know how to time and use it correctly. So for me, medium works well. I use it most races and it gets the job done without any major issues. And again, if you feel like other people are faster than you or your competitors are faster in certain areas, use your ERS performance in those places where you feel like it's absolutely necessary. Again, just to remember, hot lap is all about acceleration, overtake is all about top speed. That's the general rule of thumb when it comes to those two settings, and everything else is all about managing and saving. So let's say, for example, you've been pushing very hard, you've got a couple of you've done a couple of good laps, but you need to save energy. You've got 10% ERS left. You can see my ERS at the minute, we're currently on 30%, so let's burn it up a little bit more just to give you an example. So you've been pushing hard, you've been doing a couple of hot laps, in the middle of the race, and you're giving it everything, and you can see I'm running overtake now, but you need to save energy. So coming to the corners, it's a good chance to just knock it down to medium, or possibly low as well. Low is a very good mode as well through corners like this, low speed corners where there's not much time to lose. Low can do a good job, and here you see I'm gradually building up the modes and then back down again as we make our way into the next corner. And this is what I'll do, you'll cycle between modes, so that way you won't use up all your battery. You can see here we're now below 20%, well, that's okay. We'll go back down to low, into the brake zone, take care of the corner first of all, make sure your exit is clean, and then you can turn it back up again, use it on the straight. We're now approaching the chicane, and you can see we're now nearly at 10%, so I'm going to go down to low, me personally, through here. I'm just going to take the line as I normally would, and then crank it back up on the exit, use the DRS. Again, we're struggling here, 5% left, making our way into the final sector. I would run none, for example, because you can use it through here, and this is a good chance to save energy, and you just got to try and drive smoothly. Again, if you can press the brakes a bit more, try and lift and coast a little bit, that will always help. As you can see here, going for the final corner, easy does it, not overdoing it, still keeping in none. You're not going to notice a major performance difference through here. Then you open DRS, and we've got 20% to burn again on this straight. Overtake will use a lot more, hot lap would use slightly less. Into turn one, down to medium again, easy does it. Make sure you tackle your apex, then back on the gas, DRS open, use up the rest of your ERS along the back straight, and then turn the engine down again. These corners here, slow speed corners, good corners to try and save the energy and charge everything back up. And again, if you want to run it at this kind of limit, which is right at the bottom at 10%, which is not what I do. I feel uncomfortable running it this low because then you've got nothing in the tank, you've got nothing in the reserves. I like to run it at about 50-60%, so I don't tend to use the higher modes unless I really have to. But overall, that is how I use ERS in the F1 games, and by all means, if you have any further questions, then please do leave them in the comments down below, guys. But yeah, that is kind of how I use it. Like I said, I'm not an expert. These are my tips and tricks. You've got 6 modes. The first 4 is all about management, and the final 2 is about finesse. If you want to go fast, but you need to find a way to do it correctly, then overtake and hot lap, there is a bit of finesse there from gears 1 to 6 and then 6 to 8. It's all about timing and making sure you're doing the right things, and always looking at the deployment bar in the bottom right rather than the yellow one, because the white one, if that one runs out, you're going to be in trouble, and that is not what nobody wants. But guys, that is going to be for this video here today, and if you guys enjoyed it, then please do drop a like on the video. Like I said, Hopefully you found this tutorial informative and helpful. I'd greatly appreciate some feedback in the comments down below. Possibly some other stuff you guys might want to see on the channel. I've got a few things lined up that I want to do and address. But guys, that is going to be it for this video here today as Daniel Ricciardo in Melbourne, Australia. And that is it for the ERS tutorial. And I'll see you guys in my next video very soon. But until then, guys, it's goodbye from me.